Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform calls this public hearing to order. It is now 9:02 a.m. on Thursday, May 4th, 2017. Present with me this morning is Senator Joe Agustin. Thank you, Senator, for joining me. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive testimony on Bill number 54-34, introduced by myself, relative to placing variance application requirements for wireless telecommunication structures under the purview of the Guam Land Use Commission regular review process. Bill number 56-34, introduced by T.C. Ada. It's an act to amend Public Law 2218 relative to the transfer of administrative jurisdiction of Lot 7054-1 and 7054-4 reserved for the Guam Police Department and the Department of Public Works. The third bill is Bill number 62-34, introduced by J.S. San Agustin, D.G. Rodriguez, and W.M. Castro. It's an act to transfer Lot Naval Air Station, AGANA 19, to the jurisdiction and responsibility of the Mayor of BARRIGADA for the purpose of providing needed recreational facilities. Bill number 74-34, introduced by T.C. Ada. It's an act to place land known as Tizan Parcel T18 under the administrative jurisdiction of the Mayor of BARRIGADA and the BARRIGADA Municipal Planning Council, and to authorize the Mayor of BARRIGADA and the BARRIGADA MPC to enter a partnership with a non-profit organization. And finally, Bill number 79-34, introduced by Speaker B.J.F. Cruz, relative to establishing the Guam Council on Climate Change Preparedness and Resiliency. Notice of this morning's public hearing was provided to senators, stakeholders, and the local media, as well as published in the Guam Daily Post on April 27th, meeting the 5-day notice, and May 2nd, 2017, meeting the 48-hour notice, thus meeting the requirements of the open government law. The committee will continue to receive written testimony until 3 p.m. on Wednesday, May 10th. Please address testimony to Senator Thomas C. Ada, Chairperson, Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform, and can be dropped off to the mailboxes here at the Legislature or emailed to office@senatoradda.org. So we'll go ahead with the first, and I want to recognize the presence of Vice Speaker Terlaje. Thank you, Vice Speaker, for joining us. And Senator Mary Torres. Thank you. And so we'll start with Bill number 54-34. And before I call up the people who have testified, who have signed up to testify, let me just give a brief summary of the bill. The bill's intent is twofold. One, it intends to repeal an existing executive order that was Executive Order 2001-36, which basically back when it was signed into as an order by the governor, it was for the purpose of promoting the development of the telecommunication systems on island. And basically what the executive order did was it said, go ahead, build whatever towers you need, and then come back and tell everybody what you did and ask for permission then. So I think we're at a point now where we can really kind of reel that in so that then the community is aware of what is going on in its backyard. And if the established height limits have to be exceeded, then it has to go through the normal variance processes. So that's the second intent, and that was basically providing more transparency to the community insofar as what the telecommunications companies are doing. The bill right now, we will receive testimony, but more than likely, right now, the way it's crafted, it really isolates the telecommunications companies as having to be the ones to undergo these requirements. And it really should be a broader coverage so that if anything is being constructed that exceeds the established height limits, then it's going to require public notice, and it's going to require having to go through GLUC for variance approval. So that is the short background of what the bill is about. Signing up to provide testimony is Steve Carrara from IT&E, Mr. Mike Borja from Land Management, Mr. Dante Dinko from GTA, and Mr. Robert Kelly. You didn't check off. Did you want to give oral testimony? You're listening, okay. And if you want, you're certainly welcome after everybody to come up, make that choice at the end. So please, three gentlemen, step forward. And I'd like to start off with Mike. Oh, I thought, oh, okay. You were just providing written testimony. Okay, fine. All right, so we'll start with Steve.
I'm sorry, in response to the legislation, I believe the executive order was rescinded. Under the old framework, as Senator Adder mentioned, companies could go in, build a tower, and then subsequently apply for the rezoning. As the industry had matured, we didn't see an objection to the removal of the executive order limited to the monopoles that were erected. The current legislation expands the requirements for the permitting, because currently now, if you would apply for a permit to put in a cellular tower or a unit, it would be subject to the height restrictions for the property where it's at. So if you're in a building, you could put up the equipment provided it was in the current height limitations. What this does here is it would make all cellular equipment subject to conditional use. So regardless of where you wanted to put it, you would have to go through basically a hearing process similar to a rezoning, and that would be quite expensive. The technology has changed somewhat. In the older days, it was more about distant coverage. But now that we have data involved in networks, the footprint has shrunk, necessitating more cell sites. So although we may not anticipate as many monopoles, we probably will be seeing an increase in the number of smaller sites going up. And the way the legislation is currently drafted, it would require us to go through, add approximately, $10,000 to $40,000 per site in terms of permitting processing. And we think that would stifle the communications infrastructure build on the island. And I think that the current zoning mechanism, the way it's set up with purposes of the height limitation, serves an effective purpose. We don't have an objection to if the definitions were changed to limit it to freestanding structures. The monopoles. I believe the last time this came up it was because somebody came back from a vacation and there was a monopole next to their yard, and we certainly don't want to see that. We want people to have input into that process. So with the definition change, I think we could support the legislation, but we just want to balance it, because every time we need to put in a cell site, it would add an additional cost, and it would delay the implementations of critical infrastructure. Everybody uses a cell phone. All the carriers get complaints. I have no service at my house. I have no, I have to walk outside my house. Everybody would like the service. We have to put these sites in, and putting them on building tops is less obtrusive. For the most part, they blend in. People don't notice they're there. The safety of, I know safety was an issue that was raised in the legislation. We believe that's been addressed by the FCC. All of our equipment is, our licenses require us to use only FCC-approved equipment. The manufacturers have to get that equipment approved by the FCC for us to use it in the frequency. If we were to use unauthorized equipment, we could lose our license. I don't think any carrier is going to engage in that type of behavior. I think it's well documented that there is no harm from the RF emitted from the tower. You probably have more when holding in the phone up to your ear than you would be standing next to a tower, and most people don't stand next to a tower. So again, we would support the bill with changes in the definition to limit it to the monopole type situations. Freestanding, that would be affixed to the ground, and provide people the opportunity to comment on it and have a public hearing. But we would like that definition narrowed so we could proceed under the current zoning scheme in place as is. And we would also like to consider that sometimes we use cellular cows, cell sites on wheels, and it's basically a trailer with a pole that goes up, and it's movable. If the legislature would consider including an exemption for that in the legislation as a temporary structure.
Okay. Well, thank you. And you're correct. There was a similar bill that was introduced in the previous legislature. We pulled it back because there was the assurance given that the governor was going to go ahead and on his own accord repeal that executive order. Did not happen, so we went ahead and introduced this legislation. The legislation has evolved considerably due to a lot of inputs that has been received from the time that it got introduced, and it will have changes to it. And I can assure you that we will have, after this public hearing, we will be having a roundtable discussion at least, so that we can make sure that we strike that balance. We certainly don't want to flood and cause a bottleneck at the Guam Land Use Commission, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that these sort of activities are totally transparent to the community. Okay. I want to also recognize the presence of Senator Espaldon. Thank you, Senator, for joining us. Mr. Tedinko.
Alfredain, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators Espaldon, Terlahi, San Agustin, and Torres.
Representing GTA.
On behalf of Teleguam Holdings, DBA GTA, my name is Dan Tedinko, Executive Vice President for GTA, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning on the measure, Bill 5434. As a telecom provider, GTA, like other telecom providers on island, strives to fulfill customer demands and expectations with reliable and ubiquitous services throughout Guam. The ever-increasing growth and needs for all our customers dictate that we have in place more facilities to ensure that such delivery of the services. As we endeavor to do this, we're mindful of the need to balance community concerns by avoiding unbridled and rampant development. After all, our 497 employees from GTA live in the same villages and neighborhoods as everybody else. We agree the bill does have some merits, insofar as aiming at greater public input on any proposed cell lattice tower and monopole, which may be erected in a residential area. The construction and raising of such tall structures should not be placed overnight in a residential area without feedback from surrounding residents. When we announced, for example, a couple of years back to place a 50-foot concrete pole in an easement in the village of Chalampago, we worked closely with Glenn Leon Guerrero, the Department of Public Works, alongside of the village mayor, to get feedback from the surrounding residents. We didn't exceed any limitations and stuff, but nonetheless, we still wanted to sit down with the residents, and we had a village hearing with the residents at the request of the mayor to inform them of what the structure was, what it was designed to do, etc. We answered all their questions, and we assuaged their concerns, and even worked out an offering to the school there school located there for connectivity and needs. GTA fully understands and appreciates the need to get community support and buy-in for these types of edifices which may go up in their neighborhoods. While we fully respect the good work and diligent review of the Land Use Commission, invariably given that they convene once a month if they have a quorum, I'd respectfully suggest that the committee consider a review mechanism which will not impede such infrastructure from moving forward in a timely manner. Demands for the increasing services must be met as soon as practicable. Otherwise, we may have business and residential complaints with being unable to contact emergency service providers or law enforcement, as an example. All the telecoms have obligations to ensure that, and GTA as a carrier of last resort strives to ensure that because we're mandated to do that. With the recent announcement of FirstNet, the nationwide project to build the first nationwide wireless broadband network for first responders, our island, as part of that massive federal project, will see more robust connectivity for the benefit of island residents who may need to contact first responders in emergencies, and we all have to be ready for that. We do have some suggestions for committee consideration as it marks up the bill. Under the definition structure, as Mr. Carrera had suggested, we note that measure defines wireless telecom structures as any facility, including but not limited to cell antenna, cell towers, and cell monopoles that provide affordable and easy access for business, personal, and emergency communication services. We think the definition should provide a clear distinction between rooftop cell antenna and standalone lattice or monopole towers, the 100-foot poles that people are noticing that may be around. We suggest exclusion of rooftop cell antenna altogether, as they are not obtrusive and imposing like the tall structures you see around. As an example, we place a 10-foot antenna on top of a mom and pop store in a village where residents and businesses have been requesting for better services and enhanced services. And we reinforce that rooftop, that 10-foot antenna on top of a mom and pop store, say a 2-story mom and pop store, and secure it appropriately to provide the coverage for the residents and businesses who are demanding it. Further, the bill makes tower construction a conditional use in all zones except M2, heavy industrial zones. Included zones are A, R1, R2, C, P, M1, H, and S1. We ask, is there really a need to include any zone but R1 and R2? Further, the bill should be amended to grandfather any existing structures presently in place. Telecoms should not have to get a variance to replace an existing structure, which are already out there for providing the services and the critical services that everybody's already utilizing. As you consider the measure and suggestions, I want to note that all the telecoms are striving to do their best, whether it's us and IT&E alongside with Docomo Pacific and iConnect. We're even sharing and doing sharing agreements and co-location on each of our structures instead of us having to go out and get several structures and erect several structures throughout the island, which would dot the island. So each of us have been entering into co-location and sharing agreements. And our aim is mutual. We want to ensure services for the residents and businesses and that they're delivered with the best equipment and infrastructure required in a balanced and managed fashion. We respectfully ask for your favorable consideration of our suggestions and look forward to the markup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tydinko. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Senator San Agustin, do you have any questions? Okay. Vice Speaker? Senator Torres? Senator Spaldon? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. We'll take your testimony and we'll let you know. I will continue the dialogue until we're ready to report it out of committee to make sure that all the interests have been addressed, okay? The concerns. All right.
And we're available to come in to meet with Senate staff's convenience.
Sure. Okay, great.
To
All
go
right,
through
thank you.
these issues.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the bill number 56-34, introduced by T.C. Etta. It's an act to amend Public Law 2218 relative to the transfer of administrative jurisdiction of lot number 7054-1 and 7054-4, Municipality of YIGO, reserved for the Guam Police Department and the Department of Public Works. Signing up to provide testimony is Chief Cruz, Mr. Mike Borja, Department of Land Management, Mr. Glenn Leon Guerrero, DPW, Mayor Blas, did you want to testify on this? This has to do with JIGO. Huh? In support? Okay. All right. If you want, you can come up and I guess after we finish with the men in blue. Okay. Okay. So, Chief. I'm going to do this. Mike, you had signed up. Were you going to give oral testimony or just written? Okay. I need to read land management's testimony in this one then, but it would be great if you can come up. I think we need to start with his testimony. That clarifies a lot of issues.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Senators. My name is Mike Borja, the Director of the Department of Land Management. On Bill number 5634 for the use of properties in JIGO for both Public Works and Guam and Guam Police Department, I submitted my written testimony, and I just want to start off that Public Law 2218, which reserved a number of parcels of land throughout the island for various government agencies and departments. In this case, Lot 7054-1 was reserved for Public Works, -4 was reserved for Guam Police Department.
So,
however,
before you proceed, let me just kind of intervene, please, so that everybody gets oriented. So the lots that we're talking about is in JIGO, and the point of reference is the JIGO gym along Route 1. To the left of it, as you're looking into the gym, is an empty lot, and that was, I believe that's lot 7054-4. That was originally reserved for DPW.
no, I'm sorry. The one in the corner, the tip is -1 that was reserved for DPW.
DPW. Right immediately behind the gym is 7054-4. That was reserved for GPD. But way back then, DPW went ahead and set up shop behind in 7054-4. And so what we need to do now is get the record straight to say that, okay, that lot belongs to GPD, and the lot immediately behind the gym will now belong to DPW. So that hopefully everybody gets oriented now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So in both cases, those lots -1 and -4 assigned and reserved for Guam Police Department and Public Works are not in the Chamorro Land Trust inventory of lands, and so the Chamorro Land Trust is not a player in any part of this administrative transfer. Now, Bill 5634 reflects the land reservations of Public Law 2218 for the Police Department and Public Works, and describes Public Works' established use of the lot -4, but it wasn't specifically reserved for them. The intention of this bill is to switch the reserve lots, which would ultimately provide 7054-1 JIGO as for the Guam Police Department, which is the common objective of this bill and another bill introduced, which was 44-34. The Department of Land Management, in its role to monitor and regulate land uses on Guam, recognizes the increased residential development in the municipality of JIGO. This particular area already has housing subdivisions either completed or in development across Marine Drive, and additionally commercial growth on both sides of Route 1 from Gatsanero Road to the front gate of Anderson is either underway or inevitable. With this increased growth, the Guam Police Department's facilities on Lot 7054-1 in JIGO fits ideally into the scheme for community development. The department further concurs that Bill 5634, directing GPD to use portions of 7054-4, which is the lot that's currently being used by Public Works, that GPD use that area for their evidence storage of impounding vehicles. So the Department of Land Management does support Bill 5634 as more administratively correct in reassigning the reserve lots for both Public Works and the Police Department.
Okay, thank you very much. Chief?
Mananas Zeus and Hafaday, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform. Before I begin my testimony, I'd like to introduce my staff that are with me this morning. To my left is my Operations Bureau Chief and Acting Police Commander, Major Manuel Chong. To his left is my Investigations Bureau Chief, Captain Chris Castro. And to my right is the Services Bureau Chief, Major Andrew Kitagwa. I am Joseph Cruz, the Chief of Police of the Guam Police Department, and I am here in my official capacity, along with key members of the Guam Police Department, to render testimony relative to Bill 5634, an act to amend Public Law 22-18, relative to the transfer of administrative jurisdiction of lot number 7054-1 and 7054-4 in the municipality of YIGO, reserved for the Guam Police Department and the Department of Public Works. The Guam Police Department safeguards evidence and property not belonging to the government of Guam in a leased facility and a former construction materials warehouse. The Forensic Science Division Evidence Control Section is staffed and functions in this leased facility to meet the critical objective of adequately and appropriately storing evidence from crimes and cases awaiting the adjudication or potential for adjudication through the criminal justice process. While the Guam Police Department leases this facility, efforts for capital improvement to construct a new and modern evidence control facility have been underway since my appointment as the Chief of Police in May of 2015. To this point, on May 27th of 2015, the Guam Police Department developed a scope of work for the facility construction of the ECS, and on October 1st of 2015 was granted $1,045,000 from the Department of Interior to construct a modern-day evidence control facility. The following phased approach, which has been abbreviated for the sake of this testimony, to meet the end state of this facility construction project was provided on the scope of work to the Department of Interior. They include, number one, within 6 months after the receipt of funds, phase 1 of the construction project, land acquisition will be completed. Number 2, within 3 months of the completion of the land acquisition, the project will be released for competitive bid. And number 3, phase 2 of this construction project, which is the engineering and design, permitting and construction will be initiated and completed within 18 months after receipt of a purchase order. During the phase 1 effort, the Guam Police Department identified property for the new evidence control section facility on 3.5 acres of property in the YIGO vicinity identified as lot number 7054-4, pursuant to Public Law 22-18, an act to reserve government real property for future use by the 3 branches of government. And it initiated reports to the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, BBMR, and the administrator of the DOI grant that we were nearing the end of the timeline for phase 1 of the construction. After the initial report, the Guam Police Department discovered that the Department of Public Works' YIGO bus satellite operations and makeshift shelter existed on lot number 7054-4. Meetings with the Department of Land Management to clarify GPD's ability to construct the ECS facility on that particular lot discontinued as a result of DPW's construction of a permanent facility and improvements in 2016 to satisfy their Government of Guam school busing operations. The Guam Police Department has since refocused its efforts to acquire property in YIGO for the construction of the ECS facility and any additional facilities in consideration of the population growth and the public safety services for the surrounding community. In this effort to meet the full intent of Bill 56-34, I am requesting your assistance in specifically identifying which additional 1.5 acres of lot number 7054-4 is to be used by the Guam Police Department for vehicles seized as evidence pursuant to police investigations, as well as identifying what, quote, reasonable access to this portion of the property of the lot means. For the purpose of appropriately and adequately planning for this facility in its entirety, the intention of any, quote, unused portion that may be used for an impound lot is not sufficient for GPD to identify and segregate as a depository for evidence. Therefore, on behalf of the Guam Police Department, we are in support of Bill 56-34 and respectfully request for the recommendations mentioned herewith be considered and included in this bill. Thank you for this opportunity to provide any testimony, and at this point we're subject to any questions you, Mr. Chairman, or the committee may have.
Thank you. At this time, I think before we open up for questions, let me just ask the Director for DPW to step forward and provide your testimony. Okay, Chief, please make sure you give a complete, I think page 3 of your testimony is missing.
Okay.
So make sure that the staff gets that. If you can get it to them now so that they can make copies and distribute to the panel. Okay. Mr. Young-Guerrero.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Atta, Vice Speaker Terlahi, Senator Espaldon, Senator San Agustin, Senator Torres, Senator Biscoli, thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide comments on Bill 5634 relative to the transfer of the administrative jurisdiction of lot number 7054-1 and 7054-4, the municipality of YIGO, reserved for the Guam Police Department and the Department of Public Works. The Guam Department of Public Works is in full support of Bill 5634. DPW has occupied a portion of lot 7054-4 for quite some time, as it houses our GEO bus satellite station. The satellite station is one of our busiest stations on island. Buses departing from the GEO location go to 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school, and all the Guam private and Catholic schools. DPW has also recently invested in $109,000 worth of renovation in a building, and that's just to start up our renovation, as the police chief has indicated. We support any bill that gives us administrative control over a piece of property that is critical to our bus operations. DPW fully supports the construction of any facility that would help the Guam Police Department, especially near one of our busiest satellite stations. Again, DPW is in full support of this bill and provides a win-win situation for both DPW and GPD. Thank you, and I'm welcome to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. So before I open it up to the panel, there's just a couple of things that I want to ask. And Chief, I understand that the department, your department, is racing against time to get that money, the $1 million that's a grant that's been provided to you, encumbered and expended properly. Now, is that the ideal location, GIGO, to construct because I would hate that we're going to build it up there because of the time factor, as opposed to possibly building it up on the GCC campus area adjacent to where your evidence laboratory is. And there's been, and at least I've initially broached that idea to the GCC president, and she certainly was receptive to taking a look at possibly carving out some property there. And again, if we really want it to happen soonest, I think everybody can get on board, find that piece, and hopefully come to a mutual understanding and agreement to be able to set that there. But I hate that, I wouldn't want to think that we're going to build it up in JIGO only because we haven't, that's because we're racing against time. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, you are in fact correct. In an ideal situation, in a perfect world, yes, it would make practical sense to construct the evidentiary control section in the vicinity of our forensic science division, in particular where the crime laboratory is at. And it would seem that GCC would be the ideal spot. So if we could do that, that would be great. Again, you referenced the timeline. That's the biggest issue that we're dealing with, Mr. Mr. Chairman, and it's the reason why we broached the idea of property in JIGO, realizing that it's a little bit of ways away from our forensic science division, but in the interest of time and for the sake of not losing federal funding that's been granted to the Guam Police Department, we went in that direction. However, if we are able to stay within the timeline so we don't lose this DOI funding and build it up at the GCC property, then I believe we would be in support of that, and we'd be totally on board in taking a look at that, so long as we don't, again, for lack of a better term, bust that timeline and lose $1,045,000 in funding.
I understand. Has GPD approached GCC about the possibility of acquiring some of the property that's adjacent to the lab?
Good morning, Chairman, Senators. I'm Major Kittigwa, in charge of the Services Bureau for the Guam Police Department. I did some research with the Department of Land Management on the property that exists up at the crime lab at GCC. And we all know that GCC owns the property. They're administratively responsible for the entire property. And that they also are awaiting groundbreaking for a DNA lab. So there are plans to build a DNA lab up at that property. And looking at the property with Mrs. Borja over at the Department of Land Management, the question arises, is there enough property to build an evidential control section, not knowing how much the DNA lab is going to take, exactly where the DNA lab is going to be built, and whatever exists after that DNA lab is built. And all other types of questions come into mind. Is there enough power? Can we put power there? Is it require three-phase power? And all kinds of other regulatory issues that were asked at that initial meeting with the Department of Land Management. So taking that back to the Chief of Police, we don't know, and we don't expect that we're going to be able to meet that timeline.
Okay.
And for the discussions to take place, and then the permitting, the identification of property, knowing that there is going to be another facility intended to be on that property along with the crime lab. And it's not a very big property. I can't remember how many square meters, but it's adjacent to the property at KGTF, and then the rest it goes to GW, and then in back of GCC, I believe UOG owns some of that property as well. So we did look at GCC's property, and right next to the crime lab would be a convenient place, but it's intended for another facility. So.
Understand. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, in my discussions with President Mary Okada, again, the priority for the Guam Community College is in fact the DNA lab. So we have not had any specific conversations with regards to property being identified for the evidentiary control section. So it's for that reason, plus what Major Kittigwa and his staff have gone up to talk about with Department of Land Management. It's for those reasons that we've continued to move in the direction of the property up in JIGO.
Okay. Mr. Borja, from land management's perspective, does this sort of thing look like an uphill battle that will never meet the timelines if we were to try and make that kind of a move? I mean, to try and get everybody on board, identify, carve out a piece of property there. And Have you been privy to any of this discussion?
Well, yes, we started some discussions a while back and trying to identify, well, it started even as far back as when they were looking for a replacement for the AGANA precinct, something in the local area, in the central area, and unfortunately nothing was found, so that's why they had to go out for private property. Yeah, we've been working with the police department. Whichever way we go, I would respectfully ask that Lot 7054-1, which is what is being asked for Guam, I keep saying that all day today, the police department stay reserved for the police department, because in the future, the needs, whether they're going to build it today or going to build it in 10 years, the needs for a police department substation in that area is going to be critical with the growth of that population in JIGO. But as far as finding a suitable site today and immediately, we're limited on where we're looking at. There's, places in the back on Route 15, but there you're talking about Chamorro Land Trust Commission. There you're talking about needing to still do legislative authorizations to make that kind of transfer. So finding a place, it won't be as hard as getting it approved, and because the approval process does have to come through legislative action.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the panel, so that, and I know that there's a lot of questions. I also want to recognize the presence of Senator Regine Lee and Speaker B.J. Cruz. And okay, Senator San-Agustin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Borra, Public Law 22-18, what does that specifically states about reserving property? It doesn't state on that 1993 public law that 1 year identify the property, 3 years have a financial and a basic draw-up of what the property is going to be and be ready to be built, and then that expires, then it goes back to Chamorro Land Trust. Am I correct?
I don't have the public law in front of me to read that. It may, but what we have been doing is honoring people's needs, because the needs that they expressed wasn't something that they could commit immediately for that use. For example, asking to put a police department in JIGO back when when the public law 2218 was enacted, JIGO wasn't as grown up as it is today, and so we're still working with that reserve list, whether or not, as you say, it may have expired, just to give an opportunity for others to grow into it when they need it.
Understood, Mr. Borra, but
If I may just quickly interject, Senator is very correct. There was those timelines in Public Law 2218, the 1 year, the 3 years, but I believe that is all benchmarked, and the trigger for that is when Government of Guam has approved a Guam Land Use Master Plan, then the 1 year and the 3 years then come into play. But the Guam Land Use Master Plan has never been approved.
Correct.
So therefore, those properties that were reserved in 2218 remain outside of the Chamorro Land Trust inventory.
a follow-up question to that statement that the chairman is stating. How does revenue and tax record property as you guys, as your office would provide to them? They would identify it based on how land management identifies the property. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
In other words, land management, when there's property identified on Gov Guam, or maybe anybody's property, when there's movement or transfers of property, land management transfers or sends that information to revenue and tax, correct, so that it be recorded?
Well, to inform Rev and Tax of who owns the properties when any land transaction is conducted and it's recorded at the Department of Land Management, a copy of that recorded document is provided to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. A couple of years ago, when we looked to see how zone changes done through the legislature was updated into the system for the purposes of property tax assessments, there wasn't a mechanism. And so today, any document, any bill that's enacted as a public law that changes zones, transfers properties, we record it in the Department of Land Management and forward that to the to Rev and Tax, so that they would understand who got zone changed and determine their property assessments.
Okay, are you aware that lot number 70-54-1, 2, 3, and 4 is listed as Chamorro Land Trust property? I have a copy of all the reports from Revenue and Tax. Mr. Bourne, I'm only concerned that, number one, you identified that on your letter that Bill 44, which I introduced, that refers to the same issue. It's unnecessary.
Okay, first of all, the bill that we're discussing is 56-34. So, okay.
I'm just referring to his letter now, Mr. Chairman. And I'm only concerned is that we've identified that DPW took over the property that was reserved for GPD, which if they had it today, they would be able to build what they should have built. And even today, it's still not recorded as a DPW property. I'm just concerned that on other areas in relations to supporting GPD and everybody else in the Gulf of Guam, how do we know
If you're relying on a document that shows that as your proof that it belongs to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, I have to advise you that that's not a good document to refer to. There are numerous errors in those respects.
Yes.
And so, according to our land admin and our folks, these properties were never placed under the inventory. Anything in 2218 wasn't placed into the inventory. Now, that's not to say that the Chamorro Land Trust inventory listing is perfect. It wasn't. It was a crash course in creating a list in short order, and so there exists properties on the land inventory that shouldn't be there, and we know that too. Okay. And those kinds of things need to be corrected.
Okay, thank you for saying that.
Thank you, Senator. Vice Speaker.
Thank you all for your testimony and for your presence this morning. The Chief, the ECS that you have been, that's the grant that you received to build the ECS, the evidence storage.
Yes, Madam Vice Speaker.
And, but there's no grant at this point to build like a precinct in JIGO or something like that?
Not to build a precinct. The only, we do have a community development block grant, a CDBG block grant, to build a precinct that's going to replace the Hagana precinct headquarters in the village of Senanya.
Okay.
That's the only other grant we have for the construction of a new precinct.
All right, and so you think the grant is going to cover a building on -1 and that storage lot also in -4, the portion of -4?
Yes, Madam
The
Vice
grant
Speaker,
covers both
we
of
are
those.
confident that the $1,045,000 that has been granted to the Guam Police Department is sufficient to build a evidentiary control section that will adequately house evidence that's stored by the Guam Police Department.
The property, according to this bill, is 2 acres, the -1.
-1 is 2 acres, yes, ma'am.
That's the one on the Route 1 frontage.
Right, and so that's where you're going to build your evidence storage unit without the car impound lot. And do you need the entire 2 acres for that?
We believe that in the initial assessment, in looking at the potential design, not sitting down with a engineering company just yet, we believe that we will need the 2 acres for the construction of the facility itself, and an additional, at the minimum, 1 acre, but to meet the intent of 2218, the 1.5 acres would be sufficient to store vehicles that are being impounded for evidence.
So 2 acres you need for that building?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Because the crime lab, is it going to look like that? I mean, that size, or
The
it
crime lab
seems
is,
like
the
2
crime lab
acres
is a different
big
facility, ma'am,
piece.
from the evidentiary control section.
I know.
So the evidentiary control section,
I'm just saying the size. Comparing the size of the buildings, it's going to be larger than the crime
is
lab?
going to far exceed that, yes, ma'am. It will. With the amount of evidence that we currently store, and with the amount of evidence that we anticipate based on the amount that we've been collecting over the years, and as cases get adjudicated and we no longer need that evidence and we destroy it, when we take a look at all that, yes, the facility we're looking at will far exceed that which exists at the crime lab, and the 2 acres is what we need for that construction.
How much space do you lease right now for this evidence?
We have a current facility that we're renting up in Bellow Road. And I'm sorry, I'm Captain Castro, Bureau Chief of Investigations Bureau.
Good morning.
Our current facility for ECS is up at Bellow Road, and the space or square footage there is about 15,000 square feet. And based on that footage now and with the evidence we have there stored, it's barely adequate. As the years go by, cases occur, we store more stuff for evidence, and that amount is something that's more of a baseline for square footage, but we need to plan for growth. That amount at this time may not be sufficient a year or 2 from now. So I guess the acreage available on this bill would be ample or should be sufficient for our growth. But as it stands now, 15,000 square feet is kind of inadequate at this point. And remember, we store all kinds of evidence, and this is daily, so that we take that into account for our growth in the future. And the acreage should be sufficient when we do plan for that.
Thank you.
I'm Major Man Chung. I'm the acting police commander. If I can add more to that. Evidence is not just little pieces of drugs or whatever, which is going to be stored within the building. Evidence is also like vehicles that were involved in fatal accidents. Okay, so we do bring those vehicles. We need to store them. We need to process the vehicles and everything after the case gets adjudicated, especially if there's a suspect or a person that has been arrested. Okay, we have to hold onto that vehicle until the case is over. Then we release it back to whoever needs to be released. So that's why we're asking for the full amount based on this bill. So I understand where you're going. I'm pretty sure that your mentality is evidence. You're thinking about drug evidence or property or stuff like that, but evidence is also vehicles.
I
okay?
understand.
And
I
with-
understand evidence, Mr. John.
Okay, so,
Officer,
you know,
I just
so
want to...
that's why we're asking for the 2
I'm just trying to
acres.
clarify acreage. How much acreage do we really need, and how far along are the plans that tell us how much acreage we need? That's it.
Okay.
And Mr. Borja, could you, on this map that you've submitted with your testimony, it's actually a map of 7054-R1, and it looks like -1 is like this is a proposal to subdivide it? Is that what R1 is? On the top right corner, is that a reflection of -1 subdivided or not? Or am I looking at that wrong?
Right, it's the greater lot. It's a parceling of a larger lot known as, I think it's scratched out here as R1. So the large lot, the original lot 7054-R1 was then subdivided into
Okay.
various other lots.
All right, so I got it backwards. All right, thank you, Mr. Borja. Thank you all for your testimony.
All right, Senator Torres?
Chief, you discussed timelines throughout your testimony, and I just would like you to remind us what you mean by the timelines.
Yes, Senator, the timeline started on October 1st of 2015, and the guidelines of this particular grant gives us a 3-year timeline. So we have up until October 1st of 2018, notwithstanding any extensions on the grant or the funding of that grant, to be able to execute this monies and the construction push through. So we're looking at a 3-year timeline from October 1st of 2015.
Is that 2018 to encumber or 2018 to expend?
That's 2018 to expend.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you had discussed the language contained on page 2, 14 and 15, regarding the unused portion of the one lot, 7054-4, to be used by DPD as a vehicle impound lot. And the way that the bill currently is written, it almost implies that there's a gentleman's agreement of sorts for the use of the lot. And my question to you is do you see a need to better define this so that we actually allocate a specific amount and perhaps area of one lot to GPD so that we can formalize the uses and the jurisdiction and the responsibility for that particular area?
I do, Senator, and I believe in my testimony, I think you have a copy of that on page 6 of my testimony on the second paragraph, and I apologize for the size of the font. The eyes are failing on me, but on the second paragraph of page 6, I specifically mentioned, I quoted the word specifically to identify what portion, unused portion are we talking about. And I agree that a gentleman's agreement may not be sufficient, and there may be a need to specifically outline the 1.5 acres. So I've asked that we specifically identify that, and that the reasonable access to that portion, what does that mean to the Guam Police Department? When I'm bringing tow trucks and vehicles the size of buses in, which could be potentially used as evidence, access in and out of this 1.5 acres for an impound lot, that also needs to be clearly defined. And as without that kind of specificity or definition, we may run into some issues as we push forward with this bill. So that's why I was asking in this portion of my testimony for some definition and clarification on the quote unquote unused portion of lot 7054-4.
Okay, and I totally agree with your assessment. Now, you mentioned just a few seconds ago, or a few minutes ago, that you would need at least 1 acre, but in your testimony, you provided for 1.5, which would make the initial size of the lot that was designated to you prior. Is it 1.5 or 1? What would
Well, to meet the intent of the law, we would ask for 1.5.
Okay.
But yes, at the very minimum, we need an acre of property. That's at the very minimum. But then when we go back and look at the fact that Public Law 2218 gave us 3 acres of property, or 3.5 acres of property, to meet the intent of that, if we get 2 acres from 7054-1, then 1.5 would meet the intent of the initial law of giving us the total amount of property given to the Guam Police Department.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome, ma'am.
The clear delineation that you're wanting certainly is a very valid point, and that will be addressed on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Spaldon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, in your testimony, bottom line, we all understand that there is a timeline to meet it. And it says within 6 months after the receipt of funds, phase 1 of the construction project land acquisition will be completed. I take it that since we're in this process right now, that we're in phase 1.
That's correct, Senator.
And so that, by extension, means that we have received the funds.
We have received the funding.
Okay.
That's
and
correct.
When were those funds received?
Do we know what exactly?
October 1st. I'm sorry. October 1st of 2015. It was loaded into an account, and it's already identified in the AS400.
Okay, so we're kind of delayed is what you're saying. I mean, if it was October 2015 and we're in May of 2017, you know, that 6 months has really kind of lapsed in terms of the acquisition.
It has, Senator, and we've had discussions with the administrator of the grant, with the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, and he is aware that the timelines are shifting on us, and he is working with the Department of Interior. As a matter of fact, at this point in time, he's in D.C. Talking to the folks at the Department of Interior to address the issues as to why we haven't moved on the phases of the construction of this project. So yes, you're absolutely right, Senator. The timelines are shifting on us, and again, we've been working this issue as aggressively as we possibly can. But to be clear, yes, the timelines are as you have indicated, and they have shifted, and we are in communication with the administrator of the grant.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I guess what piques my curiosity, well, several things. One is, your team, as well as you, has testified that perhaps the more ideal location would be close to the GCC area. And I just want to hit on that again. Do you or do you not know whether they have 3.5 acres that might be available for this kind of a facility?
To answer your question directly, Senator, we do not know whether they do have that property.
Okay, good enough. Ms. Leon Guerrero, may I ask you a question? Now that I have a kind of a better perspective of where this property is at, that DPW is utilizing, but not really part of the property that they should have been utilizing, and I'm, I know that I've seen the buses up there, or some buses up there, and it's kind of, if you're facing the JIGO gym, it's to the left and towards the back. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does it utilize, do you know how many acres or how large that property is that you do utilize?
Well, that property, is 3 acres, right, Chief? 3, yes. So, but there are some issues with that property. There's a sinkhole.
Right.
So we need to address that. There's issues. We've actually cordoned it off. We've fenced it off and are using it. And as I mentioned in my testimony, that JIGO and Dededo are probably our highest growing areas. So it's probable that we'll need to assign more buses.
What kind of facility? I mean, I have never really looked at the facility itself. I know that that's where you bring your buses and park them and probably maintain it. What kind of facilities do you have up there right now?
Well, it's basically a lot with a house or a facility. We invested about $109,000 from Department of Interior funds to put that bus satellite there. We're in the process now of outfitting the satellite to, house the with furniture and stuff like that, so that our bus drivers can use that as their working stations.
And I know it's not on the table, but just to explore a little bit more, if some monies were available, would it be difficult to move that operation back to the original lot that you were supposed to? I mean, if you're saying that it costs you about 100 and some, let's even go a little higher and say maybe to replace that lot or the structures on that lot now to maybe $200,000, would it be very difficult? Because I would imagine that right now, aside from that structure, it really is basically the fence and whatnot just to protect the assets.
Asphalt, yes.
So would it be very difficult to move your operations to the original line?
Our site, we just need to be up in JIGO, and we're not, as we were sharing, or as we obviously, it was designed or planned, I guess, I'm not sure how it worked out with DPW and GPD in the past. We do not need to be road front. We do not need that access. Therefore, we took the bigger space, I guess, in the back.
And I understand that. And the point I'm trying to get at, though, is that it seems to me that if GPD had the original lot that was reserved for them,
yes,
then they would have one unified facility, as opposed to breaking it up, where where now they would get 2 acres here and another 1.5 acres there, and it poses probably some security concerns as well as cost concerns to have 2 different facilities, when really the intention probably is to enclose it into one. And I guess that's kind of like where I'm trying to understand whether it's at all possible to actually go back to the original design and plan in terms of who has what property, and that way there'll be one contiguous lot for GPD to operate out of. It would seem that security issues definitely would be lessened, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're dealing with one facility as opposed to 2. And so forth and so forth.
So to answer, I guess, the question that I think you're leading to, you're asking me how much property I need and is it easier enough for me to move a satellite station. We typically plan for about 2 acres for a satellite. JIGO obviously is a big area, just as Dededo is, so we'll need more of that as opposed to another satellite like in Chalampago or in Iran or something like that. But typically our planning guidelines are about 2 acres.
Right, which is what the original lot was. The lot right now, I should say, that it's designated for DPW use is.
Yes.
Although I think there would be limitations on that one because of the shape of the property itself. right? Because it's a triangular shape.
Yes, I don't know. I've got a, I don't know what the configuration of the property looks like in 54-1. So I'd have to look at it from that standpoint, yes.
I have a couple other questions, but Mr. Chair, I'll let the other members ask, and they might even have the questions that I have in mind. And
All right.
I'll give it for now. Thank you.
Before we go to the next panel member to ask a question, can we go ahead and put up the aerial photo on the TV, just so that we make sure that everybody is, this will be real quick.
Senator, this is the aerial photograph of the area. It actually contains the entire lot 7054. And but it does show the subdivision, and if you can follow the mouse on the screen, this is lot 7054-1, which has roadside frontage, which is probably a plus for the police precinct. Right below that is 7052, which is occupied by a government lease with gain, half of the lot. And then we have the 7054, which is the Dedido's, take that back, YIGO gym. And right behind that you see the big paved area, and some of it is not paved. That's lot 7054. You can actually see the buses in that particular lot. Below that, just to give a complete accounting of the area, is the GPA substation where the Gecko generators are, and this area.
Can you blow that up? There you go.
So this is the the GPA substation, and this big area down here is an area occupied. I believe this one is the one that's owned by the Land Trust, occupied by IBC Corporation. The two lots that are in the bill is basically the triangular piece way here on top, and then skipping over gain, this is the other lot, which is the bus satellite station.
Is DPW utilizing the entire paved area behind that gym, Mr. Leonguerrero?
No, sir. No, sir.
No?
No.
Okay. And as it shows right now, is it just that little green, that space to the left rear, or to the right rear of 7054 that's available for the impound lot, right where you have the cursor? Is that the only space that's available?
No, that's, the chief has actually come to my office, and there's areas that we can cordon off. I guess the only, again, the concern that we have is that I don't know how to point to, but there's if you see the buses, there's a middle portion. That's the sinkhole we're talking about. So we need to address that.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think we're going to need to take a closer look. There you go. The little triangle right to the bottom right there, where you have the cursor, is that part of 7054? Okay.
Yes, sir, it is part of 7054-4.
Okay. And Mr. Leonguerrero said you're not currently using all of that paved area for the parking?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you foresee this satellite growing to accommodate more, needing more space to accommodate a larger fleet?
I do, but I don't see us needing the entire 3 acres, and I'm sure that we've done this with GPD in the past. Happy to work on a solution that works for both of us.
Okay. I don't think we're going to we're not going to solve this here. After this hearing, we're going to need to get together with land management, Public Works, GPD. Let's see where we're going to carve out what. Okay? Now, so thank you very much. Senator Lee, did you have any questions? Speaker? I have some questions. First of all, on Section 2 of the bill on page 2, it lists certain parameters that 7054-1, and that's the pie-shaped piece along Route 1, that is to be used to construct a Sagan Policia or related GPD facilities, to include such as an evidence storage facility. So we kind of wanted to make it as broad as possible. Do you have an inkling of whether there's enough space there to co-locate an ECS and a precinct headquarters, for at least for the north?
It is my opinion that the 2 acres will not be sufficient for the construction of an ECS and a precinct headquarters. In looking at the 4 precincts that exist now, there's the 4 precincts that exist now, minus Agana precinct, which is going to Sinanya, and 2 acres have been identified for that. A precinct headquarters requires every bit of 2 acres. So if 2 acres exist up there for the ECS, and we need 2 acres just for the ECS, we see that there will be not enough land space for the construction of a precinct headquarters, as we see it, as we see how it's designed now, with a evidentiary control section.
Now, just to follow up on Senator Espaldon's question, now we've kind of alluded to the fact that a evidence storage facility up on the GCC campus, close by to the laboratory and all that stuff, would be ideal. But if push comes to shove and YIGO is the place to build this facility, aside from requiring 30 minutes more to drive evidence up there, do you see that as an impossible situation?
Absolutely not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Also, Section 2 makes it very clear that lot is not to be used to store, to be used to store the impounded vehicles. So in other words, we don't want, kind of like a junkyard up on Route 1.
Absolutely.
So you're clear on that?
We are very clear on that.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any further questions. We will have a follow-up discussion after the hearing, so that we can strike that sweet point. Okay, Senator?
The Section C also says that the portion of -1 will be used for a vehicle impound lot. Do you need that to be changed to, is it a vehicle impound lot or the vehicle storage, evidence storage area?
To be very technical, Title 16 of the Guam Code Annotated forbids the Guam Police Department from impounding vehicles. We are no longer in the business of impounding cars. However, we do seize vehicles for the purpose of evidentiary value. So if in a traffic crash, a fatal traffic crash, we do need to store a vehicle. If the vehicle is used in the commission of a crime, we do need to store it to gather evidence, further evidence from it, and then wait for the case to be adjudicated. So it's not an impound lot per se, but it's a storage lot for the purpose of storing vehicle type evidence in that particular lot. So it's not an impound lot per se.
Yeah, I noticed in your testimony, you keep referring it to vehicles seized as evidence.
Yes.
The police for that. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Senator San Agustin?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to
I think
ask-
maybe for your point, can we bring back up that aerial photo? Go ahead while he's bringing up the aerial photo.
Okay, and then, Mr. Bohr, maybe you may be able to help us out on this one. As they were identifying the property, which is right adjacent to 70-54-2, I know that that's on lease with the animal care, the game. Is that whole lot there is to game?
Can you blow that up?
It's right next to the 70-54-1.
Yes.
It's the,
Well, that one whole section there, I think it's called 7054-2.
that's correct. I was just curious because they're not using it and they already fenced off where they're using. And I honestly believe that if the intent is to add additional acreage to the Guam Police Department, maybe that may suffice. There may be 2 acres there right next to, which is basically in front of game, because they're already fenced off. It don't look like game's going to expand. And that's a lot that actually has been used by the mayor to hold items for disposal, and maybe that can be, and it's right next to 7054-1, and if that maybe could be available to the police department for the purpose of a police precinct up in JIGO. Because I know for a fact that on the back where 7054-4, where the sinkhole's at, because I've seen the bus operation, it's a pretty tight fit. And the acreage or the lot that's available in 7054-4 is actually almost an acre only, that jungle. And the only way the police department will be able to get in is they have to build a road to go to the backside. And I'm only concerned if they seize evidence back there with the gym there and everybody else visiting there, the risk is high. It'll cost a lot more money for GPD to have additional security. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. It's very dangerous. It could be a party back there on the evidentiary. But I'm only concerned about the 7054-2. And I wanted to bring this up, I advise the chairman, is for the purpose that if it is available, if you advise the chairman later on that 7054-2, half that property could be available to the police department, it would have been easier to address that on the floor to amend his bill to give that property to the police department.
Who's the owner? Is that a Chamorro Land Trust property, the 170-7054-2, the one directly in front of Gain? Can you point right there where the cursor is at?
Right, where the Gain is at, that whole lot is 7054-2. I'd have to check to see how that was done. That was assigned way prior to the Chamorro Land Trust.
And it's currently under a valid lease?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
And what's the ownership of the property behind Gain?
That is a large, significant tract of land which we're trying to get registered. It's unregistered land.
That's
Chamorro Land Trust. Right. So that's why it's a nice green area. There's no plans for it at all except to get it registered. The most current map for that is something from 1954. Okay. And it was a Navy map.
Okay. I also don't, certainly the requirements of GPD is very important. I don't want to diminish the work and the value that Gain provides to the community also. So I just want to put that on the table.
We understand,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Don't worry, I won't throw you at the dogs. Oh, that was a bad comment. Okay, are there any other comments? All right, so with that, then we'll consider Bill 56-34 as having been duly heard. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
hold on.
You did mention, though, even though this has had a public hearing, that this will probably also generate more roundtable discussions, and so I would imagine the bill would then go perhaps into some kind of amended form, and so the bill itself also will then probably have another public hearing?
We'll see if it's going to be significant changes, but if we're talking about example amendments to the bill that makes it real, if we're going to make amendments, for example, to include another lot, then certainly that will warrant another public hearing, because now you're involving another stakeholder. If we're talking about basically being more clear about delineating 7054-4 and -4 remnants or whatever, then I think that's not a significant one. But if we're talking about adding another lot in there, then certainly. But yeah, we'll look at that, and we'll just have to kind of gauge it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, no. That's because, because we've got another leaseholder out there already. I don't know. I think so because oh, no. I don't know. I think it's a significant enough change. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and hear bill number 62. We'll now have the public hearing on Bill 62-34. That was introduced by Senator Joe S. San Agustin. It's an act to transfer lot Naval Air Station AGANA 19 to the jurisdiction and responsibility of the mayor of BARRIGADA for the purpose of providing needed recreational facilities. And at this time, I will go ahead and ask the sponsor of the bill to introduce the bill, and then we'll call up the people.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill number 62-34. The whole intention is to ensure that BARRIGADA Mayor, the BARRIGADA constituents, has the adequate acreage to have the recreation facilities. In the past, or currently even today, they've been borrowing space from as far as AGANA to as far up as Deridu. And I think that needs to end. The people of BARRIGADA have been very patient. They've actually had several MOUs with Parks and Rec, and every time they get a piece of it for a while, they'll fix it up, then it's taken away. I think it's time that we take care of the people of BARRIGADA and give them the property that they need. They've been using it, and maybe having ownership. I know that in the hands of the people of BARRIGADA, the property will improve, and we can see better activities for the BARRIGADA constituents, and it'll be a greater day for BARRIGADA. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I guess I'm going to allow the panel. We have signed up to testify Paul Blas, Mayor June Blas, but are there others who want to testify today? Okay, so Mayor, I'll let you begin, please. You want to speak first?
Good morning. I would like to go ahead and yield to the former mayor, Mayor Laguana.
Mayor Laguana, please begin. Thank you.
I'm the first to muna for BARRIGADA because I was born earlier than them. So that's why I asked the privilege, can I be the first one to talk? First of all, thank you for, and good morning, Senators. First of all, I would like to thank Speaker Cruz and those that voted for me to be pardoned with the law that was passed recently, and I was pardoned just recently. Thank you, Speaker Cruz, and members of the legislature before. I'm in favor of this bill because Tizan is part of BARRIGADA. BARRIGADA San Hazan, BARRIGADA sa Lago Tamuning. Tizan is the stomach of the island of Guam. Our stomach, our Tizan side, is Barrigada on the. It was cut up when the war started and the Japanese came and told the people of Barrigada, build us a strip. I remember Tony Northfield, who was telling the story about it, how they used to carry the rocks, smash it up, and build an airstrip for the Japanese. Tony Northfield, English, stays to my neighbor. Barrigada has come a long way for this opportunity. We never had a field. The only field we ever had in Barrigada was in front of the San Vicente Church. We played there all kinds of sports because that's when the field was available. Then the government came in and built Radio Barrigada. Money was appropriated from the government of Guam to build that field. I'm glad that it went back to the original owner. But if it wasn't going back to the original owner, we would fight for that field. But now that there is a field available, and there's a gym that was supposed to be built in Barrigada 10 or 12 years ago, but due to political aspiring, I was following another governor, the governor didn't build it in Barrigada. It was supposed to be built right next to the Barrigada mayor's office, the slum area. Then due to political happening in the governor's office, land management wanted down at the slum area in Espengo, Barrigada. They delayed it. And then when the new governor came and refused to do it for Barrigada because I was the mayor. He didn't like me, I didn't like him too. He's my first cousin. But for God's sake, give us the opportunity now to have our own field, our own gym if it's possible, because that's part of Barrigada. And Santa Ada, Barrigada goes all the way down to where Home Depot is, all the way up to Lasty Heights, all the way up to the YIGO, part of YIGO and part of Mangueral, part of Sinanya, part of San Pablo, part of Mamunto Tumaiti. That's how big our Barrigada is. But it was always cut a little bit, But this time, please, it's about time. I was born before these guys were born. We never had a gym. We never had a field for call our home and to make decision out of it and to clean it. Look how clean it is now. When the mayor's office in Barrigada took it over, because our heart is in Barrigada. We were born in Barrigada. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I was born in AGANA, then moved to Barrigada. But it was a good opportunity to serve as mayor of Barrigada for 36 years. And I'm glad that I hold that position that long because I love my village. And here, a lady that was my secretary became a mayor, and she put her heart in Barrigada. Please give us that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before we go to the next person, I just want to make sure we take the time, if everybody can direct their attention to that aerial, that photograph. Can you maybe hold that up a little bit? And so let's just give an orientation of the property that we're looking at. So what we have here is, can you show where Mariner Avenue is? Okay, so this is Mariner Avenue. Where's the old Revenue tax? It's the old Revenue tax. And then where's Tizan High? Tizan High is right there in that area. And so the area that we're looking at, that's the parcel that was, when it was returned by the military, That's the recreational facility, which includes a football field, two baseball fields, and then where's the carnival grounds? Right in there. And where's the casino? Okay. Does that include the gym that is being renovated? It's down there. Where's the old theater there? There. Okay. So I believe that should orient everybody as to what we're looking at. Where's Route 16? Route 16 is there, and Route 8 is, post office is up there on the upper right-hand corner. Okay. I'm sorry? Is the tennis courts included in that tract of land? The tennis courts lies outside of it? It's inside the tract? Oh, okay. All right. So the tennis courts are within this tract of land. Okay. So we're looking at giving administrative jurisdiction then to the tennis courts, the gym, the two baseball fields, the football field. Where's the race? Isn't there like a motocross track? It's like a go-kart track, right? And then on the upper right-hand corner there is the carnival grounds. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions about the orientation? Okay. Mayor Blas.
Good morning, Honorable Tamada, Senator Terlahi, Speaker, Vice Speaker, Senator Espaldon, Senator Torres, Senator Lee, and Senator Cruz. This morning, we're here this morning to talk about Bill 62-34. And here with me this morning, I have the former mayor to my right, Raymond S. Laguana, very passionate and one of my mentors for the years. And to my left, I have my Municipal Planning Council member, Mr. Joe Mafnes. And also in this room, I have Mr. Joe Borja. He's also my Municipal Planning Council member. And to include Mr. Senator Lee, he's my honorable member of my Municipal Planning Council. And not to forget that we do have the Guam National Youth Football Federation that are here this morning to also express their concerns and in support of our bill 62-34, an act to transfer Lot Nuevo Air Station Agana 19 to the jurisdiction and the responsibility of the Mayor of Barrigada for the purpose of providing needed recreational facilities. Hafaday and Buenas, Senators, members of the Committee of the Environmental Land, Agriculture and Procurement Reform. For the record, my name is June U. Blas, Mayor of the District of Barrigada. On behalf of Jesse P. Bautista, Vice Mayor of Barrigada, former mayors Raymond S. Laguana, Jesse B. Palican, Vice Mayor Vicente Leon Guerrero, together with the members of the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council, we unanimously support the passage of enactment of Bill 62-34. Unlike other villages, Barrigada has very limited governmental acreage for public use. That is why we have always supported the concept of creating recreational facilities and parks for the children by working with our residents. This is evident with our work with the partnership that we have established with the Cepeda, the Cruz, and the Rivera families and other residents who wish to remain anonymous. And for that record, the Barrigada Mayor's Office is tirelessly in obtaining jurisdiction and responsibility of Lot Naval Air Station Agana 19 as the Tizon Recreational Sports Field for public benefit to be used as a community theme park for Barrigada. Mr. Chairman, in 1993, when the Defense Space of Realignment Commission submitted its findings and recommendations to the President of the United States to close the Naval Air Station Guam, Mayor Laguana and the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council developed and submitted to the Comitea para Tizan NAS Reuse Master Plan Barrigada's comments regarding the disposition of the lot Naval Air Station Agana 19 and the desire of the community of Barrigada to maintain and utilize the lot Naval Air Station Agana 19 for the continued betterment of our children. Since 2001 to present, we have met with officials from the Department of Parks and Recreation, urging the transfer of jurisdiction and responsibility to the Barrigada Mayor's office so that we fully utilize the Tizan recreational sports field. We even represent them with a draft memorandum of understanding for their consideration. Director after director, our requests have fallen to deaf ears. While it's now 2017, Hafa Tanananga. On August 16, 2013, we met with Rear Admiral Tigran Ping, Commander Joint Region Marianas, and requested that a license for non-federal use of real estate of public benefit to issue to the Mayor of Barrigada. The property in question is the antenna field adjacent to the Guam Army National Guard. The public benefit plan that we submitted proposed that the recreational sports facility will be managed by the Barrigada Mayor's office, while at the same time allow public use as a sports and recreation facility and possibly later use as a public park. The public benefit plan presented would afford the Barrigada Mayor's office an opportunity to expand the sports complex so that it will offer a wider range of recreational opportunities and other activities for the residents of Barrigada and the people of Guam. Also, schools in Barrigada, public and private, do not provide much opportunity for drop in a use after school hours, but does the option for organized sports. Based on the following, the Basketball League has a total of 130 youth participating in the following. Our Basketball League, under 8, 10, 12, 14, and 15, girls under 16 and 18. The Baseball League, we have seniors, the juniors, the big league, the 18 and over, the rookie, minors, Crusaders baseball. The Soccer League, 16 to 18 years. Football, we almost have 150 participants, and these are ages 4 to 15, totaling almost 700 participants. The other programs, including Irensha Tautano, Pa'a Tautano, the Zumba Fitness, the Indoor Recreational, Billiards tables and tennis, submission centers, self-defense program, totaling 720 participants, which clearly demonstrates that the current numbers of Barrigada recreational facility are inadequate and should be increased. To the Senator, Senator Joe Agustin, Dennis Rodriguez Jr., Will Castro, thank you, and Sidus Maasi for sponsoring this bill 62-34. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Sidus Maasi for scheduling the public hearing that is here today, and we anxiously wait for the committee's favorable report that the members can affirmatively cast their vote. Sermenti, June, U. Blas. Thank you.
Mr. Mofnas?
Thank you.
Give testimony.
Can I add more comment to her
You already,
on how we went to hell to get a baseball field in Barrigada?
yeah. Let's give an opportunity first to the others who have signed up, okay? Mr. Mofnas?
Good morning, Senators. My name is Joe Mofnas. I'm here to support Bill 62-34. Now, I echo the former mayor in reference to facilities that Barrigada does not have. For example, in the early 80s, I was one of the coach for, or manager for a baseball league. And we used to have the Barrigada field up at past Pisiluhan, and then the federal took that back. So now Barrigada is in limbo where we're gonna train all our kids to play baseball or what other facilities. That's why we're trying to see whether we can secure the Tizen so that we can train our kids, you know, especially during the summer time frame. I remember at one point in time that we had what we called the summer league in Barrigada to keep our kids out of the street and, you know, keep them busy during school time that are out. And that works pretty well. But we can't do that now without any facilities, without any baseball field, without any gym that these kids can go to or train them during the summer time frame. We want to make sure that our kids are safe, and one way of doing that is by keeping them busy during the summer time frame. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blas?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. My name is Paul Blas. I'm here on behalf of the Guam Raiders in support of this bill. Some of you might know that we used to have an MOU with Parks and Rec, only for it to be taken away. After Guam Raiders and the GNYFF have put monies and time into that field, only to be taken away from the youth. It's just sad. Nobody outside of us has shown interest in that field, with the exception of Barrigada's mayor's office now. So that is the reason we are here in support of that bill. I thank you for your time and your understanding.
Thank you very much. Baguaha?
I'm sorry, I've been out of politics for a long time. I forgot to use the speaker. Senator Ada, you know the baseball field that was built in Radio Barrigada? Admiral Hoffman had that on the gate, so we were using some of the military field up at Radio Barrigada. Every time the parents come and drop their kids, the Marines will come and say, get out of the car and sit, do the, what's that, the gate search and everything. I asked Admiral Hoffman in a meeting, sir, can I get a clearing from you to clear the baseball field in Radio Barrigada? He said, go ahead, Mayor, go ahead, Mayor. No way to commission, right? But only verbal. I was so in a hurry to tell Jim Recording to come up and lead you, because it was so beautiful to ride on the bulldozer, and we started bulldozering the area. I did that. Then Saroma came and helped me build a football field, a motorcycle track. Coming Guam was there helping me little by little. We didn't spend much, only a little bit, because I operate the equipment for them. It took us a lot of help. I even went to court with the Navy. So we don't have a written permission. Then they gave me permission 1,000 feet. What happened? Parks and Recreation forgot about the football field in the back, the motorcycle track. Even the FBI that was investigating me. Yeah, I wish they could leave me alone. This is a nice place. My family and my children love it. That would have been the central Barrigada sports complex if we were left alone. And some senator would have supported me. But some senators thought I was stealing money for them. But okay, that's how they were afraid to go with me.
Okay, well, let's
I can
move
never
forward
forget, Senator, what the late Mayor Sama said when they were invited to negotiation for the ship to come in, and they were on the commercial side of commercial port, and the Navy's on the other side. And Sama said we should have followed the Mayor Barrigada and support him, and we'll be over there.
Let's move forward from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Let's see, Mr. Borja, you just provided written testimony from land management. There was no objections from land management. We had other people that have signed up, Josephine Jackson, Danny Jackson, they're all in favor. Okay, we'll start off with the sponsor of the bill, Senator San Agustin. Do you have any questions?
No, I only have one plea actually to the members, my colleagues that are here, is that this be supported, this bill be supported. And I actually look forward to visiting the Barrigada Sports Complex in the very near future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Vice Speaker, do you have any questions?
Good morning, everyone, Mayor and former Mayor. I just want to confirm, the public benefit plan that you submitted to the Joint Region Marianas, what was the result of that request? They denied it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
In your testimony, you said you submitted a public benefit plan requesting use of the property adjacent to the Guam Army National Guard.
Yes. About 4 years ago, when the Admiral was present, we did go to him and ask him, because of that area that was not being used, but now that they built the gas station there, that was the area that we were looking at back then. And hopefully working with them to at least clear the area for a baseball field, football field, or any recreational really for that purpose. But it didn't happen because of ordinances and other issues that they had in that area, that it was not possible for Barrigada.
All right, thank you. Parks and Rec submitted testimony that says they're asking that they support the bill, but they want it to be limited to the Tejan football field, Tejan maintenance building, Tejan upper and lower softball fields, and the land area presently occupied by the carnival grounds. It does not support transferring Tejan Gym, which is under lease to the Guam Basketball Association, and it does not support transferring all other undeveloped land area within NAS. It says it is in the planning phase of developing a central sports complex within the subject parcel to address the current demand placed on DPR Northern Sports Complex in Deredo. Are you familiar with these plans?
I wish that he was here. I mean, he would be present this morning, so we can have him explain a little bit more about this. Considering the 43 acres that we are requesting for to be passed of Bill 62, that does include the Tejan gymnasium. We have 19 teams right now, and we're going into the summer league. And we still don't have a gymnasium. We have outdoor courts, and we utilize even my parking lot to train and mentor these kids. And I feel that having these kids into the courts is better than out in the streets. I feel that the Guam Basketball Association should be here. And I spoke to EJ in reference to this, that we can form a partnership, that we both can mentor these kids as well. I mean, yes, preparing for the nationals, we support that. They did go into an MOU back then, and I fully support them. We are not going to take this under the rug from them. We want to continue to work with them and also mentor our kids on certain days after school. But for them to continue, that's fine. But we also want to get more opportunities to expand the area and assist and having ownership, but also share that with them, and not only with our community, but the people from Guam. We have a lot of plans in the area, and also to build a swimming pool. That Barrigada is nowhere in water. And we feel that if we put something like that in the nationals, that will be part of the national teams to utilize. And that will be also shared with the community. And I feel that he should have been here, or someone in parts to kind of, let's go over this, because 43 acres is within with the Tejan. And we are there to work and partner with them. Thank you.
Do you have plans then for what about his plans for the Central Sports Complex? Are you familiar with those?
Which one?
DPR says they have they're in the planning phase of developing a central sports complex on the vacant area of that 43 acres.
I'm thinking it's around the gymnasium area. That's what I feel that they were going to build outside courts. And this is where that we can partner. BARRIGADA as a nonprofit group as well, we can also apply for grants with the parks. And that we can always include the underserved with Mongmong Totomaiti and parts of the Lower Harmon. And getting grant monies would develop. Our dream is to put other courts outside and resurface the tennis courts as well. So having all that, I mean, BARRIGADA will be one of the ideal sports facility throughout the island.
I'm just wondering if they're in the planning phase of this central. I don't know if they have funding for this or not already, and that's I guess that's my curiosity, is if they've come so far to get funding for this, and I guess you're right, they should be here. We should be able to talk to them. And but I would just think that it should be a partnership with BARRIGADA and all the people of Guam, that if they can put a central sports complex on the vacant properties and have you manage all the other properties, then it seems like a win-win to me. But I guess I will need to question them about that. One more question is, what is your intention then for the carnival grounds and the casino grounds?
Senator, I've been really criticized on how that place looked. And yes, my colleagues have utilized that facility as a carnival, but I really take it personal, and I really want to clean that place up. And now working with the Mayor's Council to find out who owned those buildings, to please either clean it up, or I'm going to end up starting having EPA come out and start charging and, finding them and how that place looks. We plan to clean it and make it better, maybe have 9 markets and get the community together, not only for the central, but for the north and south to enjoy as well. So we really plan to put things together and also expand the fields. We have 11 soccer teams that we just finished this season, and we just started in January. BARRIGADA is going in sports. Our football's coming up soon. We only have one good field. We plan to clear for we can have practice fields. Practice fields from the age 4 to 15. And even so, we do have the Raiders. The Raiders have been supportive, Mr. Paul Blas. We work together to make sure and ensure our kids are on those fields and not out there on the streets. Am I right, Mr. Paul? Exactly my point. I really care for my village. I've worked there almost 30 years, and I'm still here today. And I'm still fighting for what I believe in. And the sports, the field that I've always dreamed of. And for many years, we've always struggled to try and practice. I'm even practicing in Dedido, people's backyards, and even as far as making these makeshift batting cages back behind my center. You know how small that BARRIGADA doesn't have? It's so sad. You have all these properties that belong to the ancestral or to the Chamorro Clan Trust. Have you forgotten that we do have a growing population? Where am I going to put these kids? Where are we going with this? So we have to stand together as a community, as a leader, and my Municipal Planning Council to stand forth and try to find these fields and get our kids into fields and not in the streets.
Mayor, I support your efforts to get the kids recreational facilities. I want to narrow down what is the issue with Department of Parks and Rec? Why are these Parks and Rec facilities are not available for BARRIGADA? I mean, particularly that. Secondly, just like in Dedido, they created the sports complex up there, and I think they still manage it. And I want to know if that can work for your village also, or for the whole central part of the island. I think that's what their plans are. I'm just guessing from their letter. I haven't heard directly their plans, but I guess I want to further investigate that. If that's something they've got money for and they can build, you know, quicker, I would think that that would be something. My final question, Mr. Chair, is just, are you aware that this property, and I don't know the implications of this, but included in the Department of Land Management's letter are letters from the Interior when they transfer this property. They said they transfer it prior to the completion of remedial action for prior contamination under the terms of an agreement between the Department of Navy and the government of Guam. This is the CERCLA, that the whole Superfund cleanup and their liabilities. So they specifically say they're restricting the department from drilling wells on the property and removing soil from an area of a former go-kart track. And I'm just wondering if you're familiar with whether the properties where you're asking to be transferred are, what requirements are there going to be under CERCLA, and if you're able to take care of those?
Well, I did talk to environmental as well, and know and identified the area that have the little, I think, soil contamination. It's just right towards the Tizen, the gymnasium, really. This is where it's at, and I think the cart area, or where I think where the motocross track is at this time. That's the area that we're talking about. But anything other than that area, there is, that I've known of, they have cleared the area, and up to this date, I know that there's no contamination on that area where the playing fields are right now.
When you say you've talked to environmental, who do you mean?
Which one, the environmental? Well, they called my office to just kind of pinpoint the area.
Who's they? Sorry.
EPA?
Okay.
Yeah, EPA, Environmental Protection, yeah. Okay. They just called my office about a week ago, and they were trying to make a schedule but I am aware of the area, and of course we try not to clear the area at this time, and maybe hopefully we can partner with other businesses to come out and maybe test it or assess it and go from there and try to clear out. But what importantly right now is what is there today, and what we see is what we're trying to clear out and clean out that area to utilize the property.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Mayor Torres, do you have any questions?
Sus Masi, Mayor, for your testimony. I just had a question. In looking at the bill, the Tizen BARRIGADA Foundation filed some documents, and I'm trying to understand the nature of the quitclaim deed was for public use of the land that is being discussed today. And the property is the bill requires requests that the property be transferred to the jurisdiction of the BARRIGADA's mayor's office. And in your estimate of how to maintain and develop this property, how exactly is that going to impact the operations and the funding requirements of the mayor's office and the municipal planning council, number one? And number two, is it contemplated that this foundation is going to be the instruments to administer and fund any development or operations of the land and the facilities?
Okay, to answer your question, right now BARRIGADA only has 5 maintenance, but we've always partnered with other businesses and of course our organizations to help clean up BARRIGADA. So with that, I know that the BARRIGADA Raiders are always there in support to always maintain. Actually, they're also cleaning and cutting the grass for us as well. So we do have scheduled times to cut the grass. So, and I know that this is going to be something in a large capacity, but I know putting our efforts together with the different organizations to come out and help pitch to cut the grass and maintain the area.
So you're looking right now to everything, the operations of this 43 acres to be gratis pretty much, just the community coming forward and
I did ask some partners to join us in the efforts to develop this area at zero cost to the government of Guam. So they see the potential and they see how passionate and what we are trying to do, in the area to make this a reality for our kids.
Okay, and the other question I had is, in considering the present uses of the area, it is an island-wide use more or less now. I know that many organizations would have tournaments there, or we even have, say, the carnival for the general public use. And I'm wondering, by transferring it to the jurisdiction of BARRIGADA, would the island in general now be secondary to BARRIGADA's needs and uses, or do you see the access to this as being pretty much the same? Because right now, with the limited facilities on Guam, the Tizen facilities are really all that a lot of us other people have to access when we have organized events. So how will this bill affect the access to those facilities to the general public?
I really have no issues with that. They can just call us and work with them. That's why we said it's not only for BARRIGADA, but it's also for Guam. And I know that the Hotel Association has also used those fields up there. Yes. The Guam National Youth Football Federation. We work together, and this is for them. We're just trying to see how we can develop even more for the entire Guam, working together and partnering with them. There is no, we won't say no. We just want to work with you and schedule the fields. That's how I see it.
And is this Tizen BARRIGADA Foundation going to be a nonprofit organization, a freestanding nonprofit organization separate and apart from the BARRIGADA's mayor's office? Or
we do have a BARRIGADA Municipal Planning Council Foundation. Yes, we do. We are a nonprofit group as well.
Okay, I'm specifically referring to the Tizen BARRIGADA Foundation and the documents that you have filed. That's on page 1 of this bill. That's what I'm asking about. Who is that foundation? What is that foundation? And is that foundation going to be the responsible party for the administration and the upkeep and development of this lot?
We can probably formulate another foundation for that area, for the Tizen side of the recreational. But at this time, we only have our BARRIGADA Municipal Planning Council Foundation. And formulating, we can always formulate our organization for that purpose.
And is that a recognized nonprofit organization?
Yes, the BARRIGADA Municipal Planning Council, yes, we are.
The 301c? Okay, all right, 501c. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Spaldon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, most of the questions have been asked. There are a couple issues I think we do need to work out with the Department of Parks and Rec to understand their position. But I do want to say that I have worked with the good mayor and her municipal planning council in the past in trying to identify land for facilities. In fact, even went as far as seeing how we could improve a Dedado lot so that the BARRIGADA teams could drive down and use that lot. That's how desperate the village is to find space for the youth of BARRIGADA to be able to become active in. So I understand the real need because, like I said, they were willing to improve a Dedado lot just so that the BARRIGADA residents could use it. So there is a definite need to examine this bill and really try to figure out how we can support it. Again, short of without the input from the Department of Parks and Rec and a full understanding, I do want to say, though, also that I appreciate the mayor's statement about being able to work with all the other nonprofit and sports organizations, because the question I had, which has already been answered, is what are you going to do about helping or allowing the National Basketball Federation to continue to use the facility, which I believe they put in almost $1 million worth of improvements. And I'm very satisfied with the answer is that, and I believe this is really what it should be, is to have that federation of our national team work with the youth
to be able to help develop their programs and train them, because that's the next generation of the national team. And so I have no questions, Mr. Chairman, except that I am looking forward to a few more answers from Parks and Rec, but I for the most part, I support this bill. Thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor LaGuardia and Mayor Blas for being here, Mr. Mofnes and Mr. Blas, for your testimony. And as a part of the Municipal Planning Council, I'm very supportive of additional recreational facilities in our village. So I want to thank the sponsors for bringing this forward. I have a couple of questions, and I know that we've discussed this, Mayor, previously. There are currently is just one road in and out of this area, and so I just wanted to ask you if you've had any discussions, maybe with DPW or other parts of the government, about how we can improve access to this area.
Yes, I know that Senator Tanada and I had spoken about this and about Mariner Avenue and opening up for some of the properties that they were looking into to changing into M1. And yes, that was a much concern for all of us. And even today, with the charter school being there and the high school, and where are you going to have that extra access for them to get out should an emergency arise? Now, I know that it's been identified already in that area, and correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Ada, that we are really looking forward and working towards to opening that access road. And also the fuel lines, I don't know if you've gone to that area, that there are now underground towards where the fields are at. So that will also give us avenue, and hopefully the military will give us to go ahead and start clearing and maybe find another access into TZN other than where it's been identified today.
I think, Senator, to answer your question, if we can refer up there, show where Mariner Avenue. So Mariner Avenue is right, that's existing, and the plans when the military had it was to connect Mariner Avenue to Route 16 on the northeast, and to connect down to Route 8 down in that area, almost across from where Carbolito Elementary comes out. And then another entrance into Tizan is Corsair Avenue. That's the tri-intersection. That's where Route 8, 10, and 16 meet up. And so letters have been sent to DPW and CC copy to the Navy of, what's the status of opening up those roads. The existing entrance, the one entrance into that area is that Sherman Drive or something like that, and I believe that is really not a legal easement. It goes through private property and can get closed off. So that's the status of the.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree. I have concerns about ease of access for emergency purposes, but I also think that we really need to look at alternative ways to alleviate the traffic in the tri-intersection, and also in the school area for emergency vehicles to get in and out. I think that's a broader concern for residents of Barrigada, so I just want to make sure that we continue to have those conversations. In addition to that, on the first page of the bill, and I think this is something that Senator Torres had brought up previously, but I just want to ask again, on line 14 in the findings, Legislature and Guam further finds that Barrigada even filed the necessary documents known as the Tizan Barrigada Foundation. So I just wanted to ask you, who are the members of the Tizan Barrigada Foundation?
I think that was back in 1995. Mayor LaGuardia at that time was the present mayor at that time. And they did formulate that Comité de Barrigada. I think that's where we're going with this. And maybe I can elaborate a little and veer to Mayor LaGuardia and answer to and that was the foundation that they created way back. And to speak on the development of the area of the Tizan and what it's supposed to be today. actually even then back in 1995 when the properties were returned back to Barrigada. So that's where that, and since then, of course, there's no Comitea de Barrigada right now at this time.
So are we envisioning that this Tizon Barrigada Foundation would be the group that would oversee a lot of this forward movement with regard to the bill and the property,
I feel that
maintaining
we
it?
should maybe revitalize that and look. We can get with our municipal planning council members and maybe get together and see how we can form that foundation straight for the area of the Tizon Recreational Center.
Yeah, I do, because I do have concerns about all of the plans that we might have and where the funding might come from for those. Because in the bill it states that if certain plans aren't carried out within, so you must begin construction and the refurbishment within 5 years, or else if the property remains idle, then it should be reverted back to the government of Guam. So I just want to make sure that we really take the opportunity and have a plan so that within those 5 years we're complete, we're done, and we can have a facility that's going to be great for the villagers of Barrigada, but for, like you said, the entire island. So thank you so much, Mayor.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Speaker Cruz? None? I just have some questions. Section 3, there's a reversionary clause, and it reads, the Barrigada mayor must begin constructing and refurbishment within 5 years from the date of enactment. What is being envisioned that must be constructed within 5 years?
Well, Senator, at this time we already had started clearing out the place in the football field and working our way up. Our vision and plans is to have more playing fields, at least practice fields for now. And because of the growing population in terms of teams, we really fall short. So we will start with playing fields, and then looking forward to building, like I mentioned, about a swimming pool or a pool that Barrigada is nowhere in water, and also use it for the nationals for their practice. I mean, I see the one in Agana that I think needs a lot of upgrading. Maybe this will also assist with that, and that's our vision. And we want to also put other, and then revive the tennis court, and also put on maybe another outdoor basketball court. And because Barrigada don't have that, I mean,
So the concern that I have, Mayor, is there's a definite timeline that has to be met.
Right.
But it does not appear clear as to when this particular clause is going to be satisfied. Is the refurbishment of the football field, is that then having met the start? It's not clear, and that seems,
that's the
somebody
start.
could interpret and say, well, if I go in there and cut the grass, then I've started refurbishing. Is that what is meant? And
Well,
I think there's probably needs to be more definition here for your benefit.
Okay. But it's a start already. We've started clearing with the football field and working to more playing fields.
Well, it's not clear from here, because when I see the term construction and refurbishment, I normally think of a physical structure being put up. So that's not clear. Now, the other part is there's other facilities on there already. For example, that casino building. It'd be excellent for fundraisers, for bingos or whatever. I presume that could be a revenue generator for Barrigada, correct?
That's
and there's
correct.
maybe the intention of renting it out.
Well,
Do we know who owns that building?
It belongs to my office.
Belongs to your office. Okay. So then that potentially is a revenue generator for
That's
you.
correct.
Now, I have a question about the football field. Now, I know that there's been a lot of work put on there. The score, the building that they got up there. There's recently been a lot of landscape that's been going on in the field. That's an investment that's going in there. Now, is that the Raiders or your group that's doing that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Guam Raiders have spent money on that field.
Sure
And
they did.
we've been assisted by the mayor's office as well.
Okay.
And one of our backbones to the improvement is actually the league itself, GNYFF. And we spent quite a bit of money on that field already.
Now, is it fair to say that after putting in all that effort and investment, that of course they have some control over that field?
Maybe I could answer that. Since we've gotten an MOU in the past, scheduling has never been a problem with that field. The biggest problem on that field is maintenance. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but nobody in the government has assisted us until the Barrigada mayor has come forward. It's always been the Guam Raiders and the GNYFF putting time into that field.
Okay. Now, I noticed that the baseball fields have some new lights put up. Who put that up?
That was, I think, grant monies that they acquired.
Who?
Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec, okay.
That's correct.
Now, by turning over jurisdiction to, of that area to the Barrigada mayor's office, who's going to pay for that power bill?
It will fall under the Mayor's Council of Guam mother account of the utilities.
Mayor's council?
Yes, correct.
But Barrigada
Under
will have
Barrigada.
control of that area?
That's correct.
And then you give the power bill to the mayor's council?
That's correct.
And they've agreed to that?
Yes, I've actually mentioned it to the Mayor's Council about Bill 62, and then to such time that it is under the Barrigada Mayor's office that they would have to entertain any billings that is incurred in that area.
Is that in
Any
writing?
recreational. Like at this time, our facility, it is paid by the mother account of the Mayor's Council of Guam.
Is the mayor's council in support of this bill to
Yes,
transfer
they-
jurisdiction? I'm surprised we didn't receive any
Yes, there
testimony.
is a resolution that they have supported.
There is?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and they are in support of it. Okay. Now, how familiar are you with the existing lease of that gym?
There is an existing lease with that gym at this time, but by talking to Mr. E.J. Calvo, that we work something out that we can also turn around and have an MOU with the Guam Nationals and work together and partner with him. So I really feel that we should partner, to mentor our kids as well, and not to take over the gym, but work together to mentor our kids and have a say or a usage of that, facility.
Yeah, right now I guess it looks like we're going to go in there crossing our fingers that all that's going to happen, right?
Yes. And like I mentioned to him, that we can also enter another MOU with them, and I know that our Municipal Planning Council will support this, because this is what makes Guam, is to train our athletes to go and compete. But I also want them to mentor our kids, because they are our future for tomorrow.
I understand that. But there's just, right now, the way the bill is written, it simply says transfer jurisdiction to the Barrigada mayor's office. But there's nothing in there's nothing in the bill that says that, with the existing tenants in there, such as the basketball group, there's nothing in here that says that the Barrigada mayor's office that jurisdiction would be over that facility also. It's just not clear how that's going to be, so it's kind of like, I guess, the way I look at it, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to transfer it to the Barrigada mayor's office and Hamzulatman. And it's just, there's no parameters to that. So, okay. Yes. Did you have something?
Just one follow-up, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, as they're verifying certain I guess, lease agreements that exist. If in fact this bill was passed, can we actually look forward to seeing a new lease agreement then with your office and the tenants?
Yes.
I think that needs to be clear, and if you can, get something in writing from them that they have that understanding that if the bill was passed, that they agree that the lease they have today, it'll be transferable to be a lease with the BARRIGADA.
Yes. Matter of fact, like I mentioned, 2 days ago, E.J. Kawa and I had sat down in a meeting, and we did agree. And matter of fact, I asked him if we can revisit the existing that they have with the Parks and Recreation so that we can incorporate it and put more into what we have that is existing today. And he agreed that we can change and have them under an MOU with the BARRIGADA Mayor's Office.
Have you checked with Parks and Rec whether that lease, I imagine the lease between that organization is with Parks and Rec? Are you aware if that lease is assignable to the
Yes, I am. I do have at my office the lease agreement. I did read through it, and what it states. We can amend it a little in terms of putting more because it's just right outside the perimeter of the Tizen court. I mean, the basketball that's the one that we want to incorporate the building of those other facilities.
But the lease is assignable.
Yes, I do have a copy of it, and that's why I asked EJ so that we can work together and do an MOU right after.
Can your office provide a copy of that lease to the
Yes, I will.
committee? Thank you. Vice Speaker.
Mayor, I heard you say about this, the existing casino building might be revenue generating building for you. Is that do you support the continued use of it as a casino?
No, we plan to develop that maybe a bingo. That can be used also for a bingo hall or a recreational, not necessarily for a casino. To generate funds.
But would you allow it to be used as a casino if it's transferred in the next session, let's say?
No, I really look forward to using it as a recreational, more of a casino.
You don't see bingo as a form of gambling?
Well, I do, but that is more of a recreational with senior citizens and, for our village to raise money and not a casino, you should say, hall.
And I guess I just want to get another general beside, I'm hearing maintenance, and I totally understand that. That's been the issue in every village, that with the facilities that are owned by departments of Parks and Rec. But that is supposed to be their specialty, right? Taking care of recreational and building recreational facilities, building swimming pools. So I just want to know, again, if you could just restate again very clearly, what is it between the BARRIGADA Mayor's Office and Parks and Rec that does not work? Why? I mean, you're able to use the fields, or you're not able to use the fields, or they're scheduling it beyond your use? Is that what it is?
Our problem was that the times that they are scheduling is the time of our season for our kids to utilize for the leagues. So working with Parks and Recreation, and I do recognize Robert Lazama, the former director, that he did manage to work with us with the upper field. But knowing that we have 10 teams and one field and only 7 days in a week, and on weekends they use it for the Little League, where do we have time to put all these kids to practice? And only having the top field. The lower field is used for the GHRA or others that are already had been scheduled. So it was very difficult for BARRIGADA, and trying to work with the teams and practicing on Dedero and backyards and behind my office. It was really not conducive and a safety, for our kids. So that's why I felt that we should, have more in terms of the usage of those facilities.
All right, I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? All right, there being no further questions, we'll consider Bill 62-34 as having been duly heard. We're going to go ahead and go directly into Bill 74-34. And that's an act to place that land known as the Tizan parcel T18 under the administrative jurisdiction of the mayor of Barrigada and Barrigada Municipal Planning Council, and to authorize the mayor of Barrigada and the Barrigada Council to enter a partnership with a non-profit organization. And the property, the parcel we're talking about is as shown on that map there. It is that area. Where is the, just to the north of it is the Weather Center. Okay. And then again, the old Revan tax is where? Okay. So that's the orientations. All right. So with that, we have, well, we had a number of people that signed up: Danny Jackson, Josephine Jackson, Ray Laguagna. They're all in favor. Mayor Blas, Charles Ada. Their testimony, I don't think it's come down yet, but they did. Okay. They sent down testimony, and then Joe Moffness from the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council. So, Mayor Blas.
Senators, I'm here this morning to talk and to support Bill 74-34, an act to place that land known as Tizan Parcel T-18 under the administrative jurisdiction of the Mayor of Barrigada and the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council, to authorize the Mayor of Barrigada and the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council to enter a partnership with a non-profit organization. Senator Ada, members of the committee, buenas and hafide para todos hamzo. On behalf of the Vice Mayor Jesse P. Bautista, former mayors of Barrigada, the members of the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council, I'm here to submit testimony in support of Bill 74-34. In our review of the quitclaim deed between the United States Navy and the government of Guam, more specifically the Guam Airport Authority, we found that item K of the deed was labeled Historic Preservation Covenant. We further found that item K also outlined the provided that a portion of the property conveyed by the deed as shown on the Exhibit H has been determined eligible for exclusion, and National Registry of Historic is placed in consultation with the Guam Historic Preservation Officer. The site, also referred as T-18, is an archaeological site that consists of prehistoric features, 2 small caves, valley ediments, and subsurface cultural deposits. These caves, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we are found to have been used as a place of refuge for the Chamorro slave laborers utilized by the Japanese Imperial Forces to construct an airfield in the area. When this issue was first brought to our attention, the first thing that came to my mind was that song. I don't know if you remember that song Raymond sang. I mean, I heard of this song when I was little, and I didn't understand it, but later I've gone through and listened carefully. But the song is about the work gang who were forced by the Japanese soldiers to work on the airfield. We are ready to assume the responsibility that will be placed on the mayor's office, and furthermore, it would work diligently with our Historic Preservation Office to ensure that this site will be preserved for our lobby of our Congresswoman to ensure that the necessary federal funding is appropriated. More importantly, we stand ready to enter into a partnership with a non-profit organization interested in developing the site T-18 as a historic and cultural site for all to enjoy. And I really thank you for staying back and listening to this bill, and hopefully that we look forward to the committee's favorable reporting on and supporting us in our endeavors.
Okay. Do you have? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? The intent here was to have, basically to develop this historic site and to allow, just as they do, because this is in a restricted area, and to allow residents to come in there like maybe once a year to be able to observe what has happened there, just in the way that we do at that Naval magazine area and in Sumai, to be able to open the place up and allow the people to come in and then leave. We got testimony from the airport. They have given a lot of, they've provided, suggested a lot of revisions to the bill. We'll have to take a look at that. We just got that this morning, and I just haven't had time to process that, so we'll take a look at that. Senator, Vice Speaker, did you have any questions?
Good morning again, Mayor. Your testimony says that you want a partnership with a nonprofit organization interested in developing the site. Do you have such plans?
Yes, the Guam War survivors with the former Senator Frank Blas Jr. and of course our BARRIGADA veterans. I mentioned that there is an area in Tizon, and of course working and partnering with other nonprofit groups that have interest in terms of developing or having a memorial site. And I'm really passionate about this because the area, it reminded me of my father that told me that they were slaved to build this runway, and my great-grandfather, and how we have all these memorial sites from the north to the south. But there is nothing really in BARRIGADA. I know I've heard of the Battle of BARRIGADA, that it's towards the Radio BARRIGADA area where it's on a private property. But we want to recognize those that slaved through that area of the Tizon, and not only BARRIGADA residents, but the surrounding areas of Mongmong. And I know I heard Mayor McDonald also mention that the mother or his father had also was one of those slaves back then. So yes, we wanted to partner with a nonprofit group to get this memorial going, and maybe once a year during our festival, during the Liberation, that we can open it up to the residents to come and memorialize that moment.
I think it's a great idea that the historic value of this property will be emphasized, and it's supposed to have been when the property was transferred, and I skimmed through GIA's testimony very quickly, and it seems like compliance with, they're asking for a release of liability for compliance with the historic preservation, and that will be placed on you then, or actually they asked that it be transferred to Parks and Rec, who is responsible for historic preservation.
Right.
And perhaps to you, or administrative jurisdiction
Only
then be
administrative,
with you.
yes.
But I think, yeah, it's a very, very serious undertaking to take care of historic property. And so I want to know whether, I was asking whether there were really concrete plans as to what do they mean by development. And I think, for me, this would all have to be something worked out with Department of Parks and Rec or the Historic Preservation Office as to what exactly the plans are. They would not allow anything to go forward, I would assume, on this property without specific plans. And I can't see why they would not allow the BARRIGADA Mayor's Office to use it, to do the ceremonies on it and all of that, or to even get donations as to how to put a monument or something, whatever you're thinking of. But I know that that's all stuff that all has to be approved. So I think if the property was transferred and it's a historic site and they could secure it, I mean, is there any reason why it wouldn't be open more than that once a year?
Well, that's where we have to, well, there is access there at this time. Anybody can go
That's
in.
what
It's
I
like
thought.
going to
Yeah,
the,
that's what I was
you know,
told.
going to the weather service, the national area. And you know, we went that area and took a look at the site. Believe it or not, there's some banana plants there, and there's chickens. And in seeing that actually, I'm not sure, it's probably the weather service or the people within the area. It is accessible. And we just want to revitalize the area, and knowing that we can make it become a reality for our people, you know, and I'm really touched by this because we really don't have anything in the central, and I've always, one of my goals in our municipal planning council is to identify this, and thanks to Senator Tamada's office that we did. And maybe working with the Preservation Office, with Parks and Recreation, it'll become a reality for all of us.
Well, it looks like GIA was charged to do all that. And then if they had done it and it would have been available for these memorials or whatever use, yeah, the community could do there. And so it's a big responsibility. I'm wondering if you consider talking to GIAA and partnering with them where they continue their liability because they are an autonomous agency and they develop it or they do what they're supposed to do pursuant to the deed, and then you use it for the memorial uses and things like that.
And I would love to partner with the airport. I just haven't seen their position statement or read it, so I don't have a copy of it. But I wish to partner with nonprofit groups to get this going, and also working with the historic, the Parks and Recreation, so that we can develop something, and we can call our memorial site for Barrigada and for those that suffered in the Tizan area.
Thank you, Mayor.
Senator Torres?
Yeah, Mayor Blas, I'm reminded when I was the executive manager at the airport, our board of directors received a presentation by the late General Ben Blas, and he brought this story to our attention. And as an effort to memorialize that, he worked with us in creating a placard with artistic rendition of the gang, the forced labor gang that built the airstrip. And that placard and a small description of this historic event or this historic period in time is now on the face of the airport at the facade on the outside. So anyone interested, you may want to look at that. Okay. So I fully support your intent to bring this historic site to the public access so that we can, remember those significant pieces of history that went into an airport that at one time was owned by the military and then transferred over to Guam, as you're aware. I do also acknowledge the very good points brought up by my colleague, Vice Speaker Terlahi. The quitclaim deed does have a lot of conditions, and one of the things that it brings up is the National Register of Historic Places, and I believe that it would be in everybody's best interest if we work collaboratively with the airport, who does have the resources and the interest in all development around the airport properties. Because this is definitely a worthwhile thing, and I commend you for bringing it to everybody's attention and to getting the project or the idea of the project going forward and started. So Sedus Maasi, and I'd be very interested to help work on the effort as well.
Thank you.
Senator Spaldon?
No questions at this time. Again, I haven't had the opportunity to read the airport's recommendations, so I reserve a comment till later. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, with that then, we'll consider Bill 74-34 as having been duly heard. Thank you very much. And now we'll
Thank you,
go ahead
Senators.
and proceed to the final bill, 79-34, introduced by Speaker B.J. Cruz. So, Speaker, if you'll go ahead and introduce the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for conducting this hearing as expeditiously as you did. I also want to thank the Executive Vice President of the University for staying all this time to testify. Bill 79-34 is my effort to try to address the issue of climate change. Climate change is real in spite of the alternative facts and the refusal to accept the science as at least by this present administration in Washington. My concern is that we as a community need to start addressing this issue realistically. What I've done in this bill is to try to bring everybody together. You'll notice that the composition of this how do I call it, the committee takes into account everybody that's already involved. The university has been the leader in sustainability and addressing this issue. This bill proposes that either the president or a designee of the president serve as a member of this committee. It also has the executive director of the University of Guam's Center for Sustainability as a member or the designee. I know that there's concern about the fact that the governor's office has established a committee also on sustainability and climate change. In this bill, we ask that the chairman of that committee and another member of that committee also serve. The other members of this committee are chaired by the president, the person in charge of environment in the Guam Legislature, and two other members that the speaker will appoint. So it's trying to bring everybody together to try to have a advisory panel to the legislature on how or what direction we ought to be taking. Everybody's out there doing all kinds of stuff, and I think we've got to get everybody together in one room to advise us on what kind of legislation should be introduced. The governor has his advisory panel, the university's doing some work, and all I wanted to do was to bring everybody together to advise us of what kind of legislation and what kind of policy we ought to be introducing going forward, because we've got to address this issue. We will be having to address climate change refugees or migrants, whichever one you want to use, in the future, and I think it's imperative that this legislature address this issue and work collaboratively with everybody else that's already doing some excellent work and trying to advise us on what legislation ought to be introduced and passed by this body. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And signing up to provide testimony is Dr. Enriquez and Dr. Shelton. Dr. Enriquez.
Manana Judas. Honorable Chairman Adat, Speaker Cruz, Vice Speaker Terlahi, other members of our Legislature in Guam. Sindakos Nasijus Maasi for recognizing the University of Guam's role and responsibility as a knowledge reservoir for providing public value, leveraging its varied wealth of knowledge, assets, and resources to support our various communities as a land-grant university. Climate change is a serious threat to our island and our region, and I'm very pleased on behalf of President Robert Underwood, on behalf of the University of Guam, to testify in support of Bill 7934, introduced by Speaker B.J. Cruz, which would establish the Guam Council on Climate Change, Preparedness, and Resiliency to address impacts of climate change. The University of Guam is well suited to participate in the Guam Council on Climate Change, Preparedness, and Resiliency. UOG recently hosted the 8th Regional Island Sustainability Conference. Our region's sustainable challenges were discussed, as well as strategies to cultivate our communities to take action. The Center for Island Sustainability has become a focal institute at the University of Guam for adapting and modeling sustainable technologies that meet the needs of island communities in the broader areas of the environment, economy, society, and education. The university is leading in climate change research and community engagement through activities of the College of Natural and Applied Sciences, the University of Guam Sea Grant Program, the University of Guam's Marine Laboratory, the Guam EPSCoR Program, and the Water and Environmental Research Institute, or WERI. President Underwood is supportive of the roles requested in this council for his office, as well as the Center for Island Sustainability. And the university is pleased to continue as an honest broker of information and provide the Guam Council on Climate Change, Preparedness, and Resiliency with the best available science and recommendations. Thank you for this opportunity to express our support for Bill 7934.
Thank you. Dr. Shelton?
Hafaday, Chairman Atta, Speaker Cruz, Vice Speaker Chalahi, Senator Lee, Senator Espaldon, and Senator Torres. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill 7934. My name is Agustin Shelton, and I'm an Associate Director for the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability. And if you allow me to deliver similar testimony as I delivered yesterday for another climate change related bill introduced by Speaker Cruz, perhaps some of the facts on climate change I could share again can benefit the other members of this committee. So at the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability, I work with local and regional partners to reduce environmental stressors and build island resilience against the impacts of global climate change. And this morning I'm pleased to testify in support of this legislation introduced by Speaker Cruz to establish the Guam Council on Climate Change Preparedness and Resiliency. Last month, the University of Guam hosted its 8th Regional Island Sustainability Conference with over 300 participants discussing topics on responsible development, utilities, natural resources, climate change, and tourism. The theme was cultivating communities for sustainable action. And the takeaway from the conference was that there is an urgency to act on environmental and sustainability issues, and we need to inspire our community to take action. Speaker Cruz discussed Bill 79-34 and this Bill 80-34 during his remarks at the conference. Both were well received by the participants. And also during our final plenary panel entitled, "What Action Do We Take From Here?" participants mentioned that they were pleased to see the 34th Guam Legislature taking action on climate change and our other environmental challenges. Senators Talina Nelson and Regine Bisco-Lee also discussed sustainability-related legislation that they were introducing or planning to introduce. Yesterday, when I testified in support of Bill 79-34, which would establish the Island Sustainability Outreach and Action Program, I mentioned a few facts on climate change, and those are the ones I'd like to mention again. Climate change is a clear and present danger here in the Pacific, and we're experiencing those impacts in 3 ways, which are increasing frequency and intensity of storms, rising sea level, and the warming of sea surface temperatures. These impacts make our islands vulnerable to storm surges, coastal erosion, saltwater inundation of food crops like taro, and coral bleaching, which damages essential fish habitat. And being a high island in the Pacific, as well as a hub for economic activity, healthcare, and education, with more resources comparatively than our neighboring islands, Guam is a refuge for thousands of climate change migrants. But as a small island sitting in a remote region, what we can do to address climate change is that science tells us we can build resilience by reducing local environmental stressors. And that means taking steps to reduce local stressors like pollution, sedimentation on coral reefs, illegal dumping in our jungles. When we do those things, the natural ecosystem functions can return and help our islands bounce back as we experience global climate change impacts. Therefore, the Guam Council on Climate Change Preparedness and Resiliency is an excellent council to discuss and address the massive problem of climate change through legislation and community action. Again, I would like to express my support for Bill 79-34 introduced by Speaker Cruz. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shelton. Anybody have questions?
Thank you, Vice President and Dr. Shelton. I'm just curious if either of you have any comments on the makeup of the membership of this committee, council that's stated in the bill.
We're just happy to be invited to be a part of the council.
Are you members currently on the governor's, or is anyone at you from UOG a member of the Governor's Advisory Council on Climate Change or the task force?
Not that I know.
You might be right. I'm looking at the list. It says EPA, Energy, Department of Ag, Land Management, Chamorro Affairs, Public Health, Public Works, Homeland, Bureau of Statistics and Plans, GIDA, GMH, BBMR. So, yeah. It says, oh no, it says, in addition, GPA, GWA, GCC, and the UOG shall be invited to join and participate as members of the task force. Okay. All right, I was just curious. This, because this task force, this bill proposes an advisory council for the legislature composed of 5 senators, either the president or his designee from two members from UOG, either the president or his designee and the executive director of the Guam Center for Island Sustainability, and then a member of the Guam Climate Change, the chair of the Guam Climate Change Task Force, and 1 member of the Climate Change Advisory Committee, and the chairman of the CCU. So I was just curious if you had any comment on this composition for a council to advise the legislature?
There was no concern raised by President Underwood. We're just very grateful for the recognition of the University of Guam's participation in whatever capacity we can as Guam's flagship institution. So we're just very pleased with that.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
I think just a clarification, the Vice Speaker was out of the room when I did my introduction. The purpose of this council was to work collaboratively with everybody that's already doing work. That's why I invited the university to participate, 2 members from the Governor's Council to participate, and to have senators that are there to listen to the discussion so that when freshman senators introduce legislation, they don't suffer the same repercussions I got and criticism that I received of, what do you know about the science? We're getting the best advice possible from everybody that's working in the area and can provide this legislature with a great roadmap moving forward, because it's imperative that we do something and do something soon.
Senator Spaldon? Senator Lee? Senator Torres? Senator Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the author of the bill for giving us an opportunity to discuss this very important issue. And thank you both for your testimony. I just wanted to inquire about the current process or current research that's being done at UOG. Is there a process that's already in place to make recommendations for all of the research that's conducted at UOG? Is there a current process?
There isn't a process that I am aware of. I know that there have been many different types of research to address this very topic across the different centers with the Sea Grant program. the EPSCOR, funded program from the National Science Foundation, as well as what is going on with the Water and Environmental Research Institute and the Marine Laboratory. It's through avenues such as this proposed council and certainly others that represent a more broad constituency where we are invited to the table to produce such research findings that are going to be instrumental in key decision-making, policy, possible policy revisions, statutes and whatnot. So we serve as the reservoir provider for the different types of results that come out that could be possible solutions or serve as valid, reliable background from which our lawmakers can draw from. So no current process unless Dr. Shelton says otherwise.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Where can the public access information that's published by the Center for Island Sustainability on climate change and on sustainability issues in general?
Our Center for Island Sustainability website is uog.edu/CIS, and there are several resources listed on that website. Another good resource to find publications from the College of Natural and Applied Sciences would be the website cnas-re.uog.edu. And so we have all of the publications by the different scientists in a database there.
I think an additional benefit of this council would just be another opportunity for us to create a public space for these discussions to occur and also have them televised and have them available. We have all of our proceedings available on YouTube, so if people have questions about them later or would like to use them for additional research, I mean, even in elementary, middle, and high school, students can refer to the conversations that could be had on this potential panel or council. And I think that that'll provide a tremendous service just in educating, continue to educate the public as well as our lawmakers as we move forward. And I'm just not sure if it's detailed in the bill, but what are the reporting requirements to the legislature? So after you, and maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Speaker.
There are several members of the legislature that are on the committee.
Okay.
And that would be the way that we could disseminate
Report
the
that.
information.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, do you have any closing statements you want to make?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The University of Guam is always pleased and prepared to provide our support in whatever capacity. Recently, we established the Regional Center for Public Policy, which is supposed to serve as an avenue towards leveraging all the various types of discipline-based research that is going on across the University of Guam campus, leveraging from our scholars, our scientists, our graduate students, undergraduate students. As a matter of fact, we are going to be launching the new journal for undergraduate research sometime this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Please join us at the Leon Guerrero School of Business and Public Administration building. And it's an avenue for high-level types of sound refereed research by undergraduate students to augment what is already happening across the campus. Students partner with scholars in order to grow that capacity that is needed for, critical thinking and certainly information literacy that draws from reliable data that is much needed by, all sectors. So we again want to express Sindangklin recognizing the role and certainly the responsibility of your flagship university on Guam to serve as our very stakeholders. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I would just like to add thank you again for introducing this legislation, Speaker Cruz, and for your colleagues that are thinking about similar sustainability and environmental related legislation. I invite you to continue seeking the University of Guam as a resource to help you with any questions that you might have, and be an honest broker of information, providing the best available science that we can to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There being no further questions, we'll consider Bill 79-34 as having been duly heard, and we'll adjourn this session. It is now 12:02 p.m.